Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and this week on the Covert Code, the topic is trusting your gut. And I'm sitting here with my longtime dear friend, Joseph Calderon, at his beautiful apartment in New Jersey, which is the Garden State, which you just learned. And I'm here on my book tour, just off the tail end of getting to go and speak at the Beekman from Quoncast, spoke at NYU. Now I'm headed to Boston to speak at Bentley, and just so excited for the opportunity to come sit down with Joey, who I've known for almost 30 years, or maybe it's been 30 years.
30 years? I mean, we would have been very young.
25?
We would have been like 12.
I was 21.
I think
no, it's earlier than that.
I think we've known each other for about close to 25 years.
25 years,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Close to 25.
Yeah, 25.
Maybe like 23, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And one of the things that I was always so impressed with Joey is how he was just good at everything and continued to be good at everything. A true Renaissance man. When I first met him, he was singing, he was performing, he was an interior decorator. He had this whole big life happening in Oahu.
Painter.
It's right. I have a beautiful painting that we found. That's on my wall now, and beautiful. But yet still, he left all that behind because he knew that there was something in him that wasn't being fulfilled in Hawaii. And now, flash forward, here's here in the East Coast, a diamond dealer, and getting ready to go pick up his first baby. Which is very exciting. But
so exciting.
Really wanted to, for you to share some of your experiences with our listeners, because I think so many of us, it's so easy to become complacent, even when you're really happy and you love what you're doing. How did you know when it was time to reach out, trust your gut, and do something different?
So I felt that I wasn't. So first of all, I was doing interior design and project management, and I was doing some, buying and selling, sort of flipping of homes and condominiums. And, there was a market shift in real estate in the, let's say, 2007, 2008 time period. So it wasn't sustainable for me to continue on that path at that moment. So I was at a crossroads, and I had to rethink and really go deep and decide for myself, like, what was my passion? What did I really want to do? What would get me up every day and make me excited about life? And what I was doing wasn't providing that for me anymore. So I was just I had a moment in time where I just did a lot of soul searching. And what I realized was what my passion truly was gems, gemology, diamonds. And I was doing some personal growth and soul searching at that time, and a question was posed to me: if money weren't an issue and there was no barrier to entry, what would you do? And I said, it just came right in my mouth. I said, I'd be a diamond dealer in New York.
Wow.
So I said,
what chills?
I said, well, that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
So very shortly thereafter, I jumped on a plane. I moved to New York, and I started working at Tiffany's in New York City on Fifth Avenue. I actually, if you're interested in the story,
yeah, I am.
I strolled into the Diamond District, which is where my office is now on Fifth Avenue, 47th Street, and I just started walking. And here I was 32 years old. I mean, I wasn't 20. I wasn't just out of college. And I started walking in and out of stores and just trying to get advice from people who had been in the industry a long time. So I walked up these steps into this very sketchy looking kind of office with this very grumpy old guy with a very thick accent. And he said to me, I said, well, what do you recommend? I want to get into the diamond business. Like, I want to be here. I want to work here. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He goes, I'm trying to get the exact words. He goes, this place is a total, I don't know if he said mental hospital or shit show or whatever he was. He basically was saying that in the Diamond District, it's like, you got to go there with a good foundation. You'll just get eaten alive if you just go there. He said to me, he goes, and I took his advice. He said, go and work for Tiffany, Cartier, or Harry Winston. He goes, go to a big company, work there for a few years, learn everything there is to learn it the right way. And then at that point, if you decide that this is really where you want to be, you'll come back and you'll have a better
free for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the best. That experience of working at Tiffany's probably provided me the greatest foundation for my career, because I wasn't just some sleazy Diamond District guy. I had that foundation from coming from Tiffany's, and I think people respected that and trusted me a little bit more.
And so you're selling diamonds.
I was selling.
You probably sold a ton.
So I had never really, like you said, I've done a million things. So the only time I ever really worked in retail was I was in Hawaii, and I was like a bit of a, spoiled Playboy kid for a while before I got into the, project management and design arena. And just to get health insurance, I worked for 19 hours a week for a makeup company at Macy's. Okay. So I think I'm a born salesman, and I don't know what the numbers are supposed to be. I'm just out there just selling stuff. So within the first month that I worked there, the sales tripled at the counter. And then within the first few months, I think the sales like quintupled. And it was basically just me and like a couple other people, but I was just selling shit. Am I allowed to say shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's our pocket, and we don't want.
I was just selling shit. I was like jumping in front of people and doing cartwheels. Like they probably thought I was like on something. Just to get the insurance. I did it for 19 hours a week, and I loved it. But that was the only really retail experience that I had. So then I worked at Tiffany's, and as a seasonal employee during like the holiday season, I had one of the highest sales out of like dozens of people on the floor, and people that had been there for, 10, 15, 25 years. And I didn't even realize that it just came naturally.
Well, you've been selling yourself in all capacities.
Yeah.
Selling your art, selling ourselves. Yeah. Actually, I had someone else on my podcast, and he, he's a natural born seller as well. And he said, people say that they're not salespeople, but think about when you were a kid and you were in a grocery cart and your mom's pushing you through the aisles and you say, Mom, I want the Cocoa Krispies or whatever. That was you selling her on this idea.
Absolutely.
And we all have it within us.
Yeah. We're all trying to convince someone else to do something that either we want or that we will benefit from, right?
I think that's exactly the same thing, because I was, affluent, and my first job was at Paradise Bakery in Aspen.
Oh.
And then I went to Boogie's Diner, and I, rose up through the ranks, but I had 3 times the amount of tips than everyone else did.
Yeah. And
I once had this girl actually call me out. Like, she's like, well, what are you doing to get all these tips? And I'm like, well, not sucking at my job.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, like if someone, needs a fork, I'm going to give it to them. But it was really about that upsell.
Well, so much of it is about attitude.
Yeah.
So I came actually from what I studied in college was hotel restaurant management. I went to Cornell.
Okay, yeah. Cornell, that's right.
I went to Cornell, and I quickly went running for the hills after that. I mean, that is a crazy business. Like, it is just incredibly demanding. And but I really, when I was in college, I wanted to be a restaurateur. So all throughout college, I waited tables, and the same thing. So one summer, I rang up a few too many credit card bills on my parents' credit card, and they insisted that I pay them back. So I had to work as a waiter the whole summer to pay back my parents the money that I charged on their credit card. So I worked at the Macaroni Grill.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like I used to, like my tip average was so crazy. Like it was like, and back then, different tipping standards, like when you looked at the end of the night, your sales, my tip average was like consistently 25%.
Yeah.
And like back then, 15% was the standard.
Even 10. I mean, like, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're talking ancient times here. I mean, and it's all in the attitude, and everything is about how you approach everything is, I think, directly proportional to the result that you're going to receive from, that activity.
Yeah, it's about imagination. That's the thing. It's like when I would go up to the table, I'd read it, and if it was women, you're first going to, who wants an Arnold Palmer? Who wants a tea? If there's kids there, it's who wants a shake? If it's men, who wants a beer? Once you get one, they all want it.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want an appetizer? Like, some imagination with everything that you want.
And also to assume, sometimes people go into a situation assuming people don't want something. Or even like in my business, I never assume somebody can't afford something.
You don't fall for the
ever.
No,
never. I show everything as if I'm certain they can afford it, and whether they can or they can't is not my problem. They either will buy or they won't buy.
At least I got to see all the options.
Exactly. But it's the same with, upselling in a restaurant as a server. A lot of the other servers, I think, were a little bit shyer, and they didn't want to, upsell appetizers and upsell desserts and upsell. But I just assumed that everybody wanted an alcoholic beverage, a appetizer, an entree, and a dessert.
They're out to dinner. They're there to have a good time.
Exactly.
They don't want to just eat and run. They want to enjoy themselves.
100%.
And I think that can be applied to any career. I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, if I think you could look at anything like in sort of a microcosmic way, like you're waiting tables, and you can take those concepts that make you a successful waiter or server, waitress, and you, I think, can apply that to many different areas in life, including other types of businesses. You need to give them the option. If you approach it sort of in a shy way, or maybe without a lot of self-confidence, the person will probably just order an entree and a Coke, and that's it.
And I also think it's about like the, part of this, having had the opportunity to have good service yourself.
True.
So I know, I think like what kind of experience we deserve and expect.
Right.
And anywhere, people are like, oh, well, you were at this quick service. Like, I don't care where I am. Like, I expect that there's going to be this level of, it's going to vary depending on if it's a Denny's, not that I go there, but if I did. No, I have. I've done Denny's before. But, and them not even realizing that the easiest thing to do, and like how annoying is it, when all you need is like you dropped your fork on the ground. That's all you want is like a new fork. And all the waiters, you're like looking around and you're just like, oh, will someone see me? Like anyone see me?
Yeah, exactly.
I just need this fork.
Right. You're like waving everybody down.
Everyone's like running around with their
heads down. Cause
like, do you want a tip? Like, do you?
So I would have been the one that would have serviced someone else's table if I saw they needed something.
Always looking around. Like,
correct.
Does anyone need anything?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So talk to me about, reading people. What is your strategy when they come in?
I think I'm really intuitive, and I feel like I have a good judge of character. So I don't think there's a specific formula that I have, or specific tells or reads, but I feel like I get the essence of people like right away. I think I understand their needs, and their what they're looking for, and that I can even go above and beyond that and give them a better experience. And it's also about value. So I think a lot of the success of my business has been predicated upon the level of service that I give, but also the level of value.
And do you have any tips for our viewers on how, I always call it in my book, like how to spot a fraud, right? Or, and not as that, but when to walk away, when it's like, hey, are there reads? Because of when it's like, this doesn't fit, and we're just gonna slowly back away.
Yeah, and that's important in my business, by the way.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of frauds out there, and I think if just something feels wrong, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels kind of icky, or if you're getting information that doesn't quite align with facts that you might know, I think that's a really good indication, and you can walk away. I mean, I also walk away from batshit craziness. So if I
you do?
I do.
Shocking.
After many years of
really good.
Oh, thanks, Pellegrino. After many years of growth and maturity and being with the right partner, have the most amazing husband, Amir. He is like incredible. And we're going to have a child. It's so exciting
for you.
Once I think you're in the right space in life, and you've eliminated all that drama. I mean, you used to just feed off of drama. I mean, it's just like, and it drains you, and it takes so much out of you, and it doesn't allow you to actually achieve what you could potentially achieve, because you're putting so much energy into all of fueling that drama.
Yeah.
Because it is serving some kind of like a sick need, but it's you got to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
But when I see clients that I can just tell are just so out there and so crazy, or so demanding, or just so disrespectful of my professionalism and my transparency in what I do, I basically take myself out of the equation. I make myself unavailable.
And so, is there like, you have another phone, or you have like a SOS message you send so that the husband can call? How do you get out of that situation?
I basically just make it in a way where I'm just not available, or, I figure out a graceful way to bow out of it. Or I can even recommend them to...
Or you just add 20,000
to someone else.
Whatever.
Or there have... No, I have a very standardized pricing model.
I call that a nuisance charge in my business.
Okay. There have been times where the person definitely wanted to work with me, and maybe there was a bit of a nuisance charge. But because my model is so far less than like the retail pricing model, it's hard, because I also don't want to jump into that sort of retail pricing territory. And then if they've, let's say, been recommended by somebody, you want to just kind of bow out before things get. You're
not going to do price gouging.
Exactly. I don't do that.
That's not you.
But so there's that. And back to your question. Sorry, I got a little bit off topic with the fraud. Again, when you see that facts are not aligning with what you know to be reality, you walk away. It's happened a few times where people have said something, and actually, because it's a small world, I actually knew like relatives of the people they were talking about, or friends of the people they were talking about, and I knew what they were saying was not correct.
Right.
So
one of the things interesting, so, the idea of trusting your gut. And when I first was introduced to that statement, it was actually my dad, my grandpa Paul. And we were here in New York, and we were visiting, and I think I was maybe 13, 14. I wasn't old, but I was bothered by something at the time, and I had to make a decision. And he had this kind of like a lazy boy chair, and he would hide, and you could see I was distraught. He was like, "Come over," and he had in the seat cushion those little suckers, with the little lemon suckers, and he had stuck them down there. And he's like, "Don't tell anyone," but like he gives me this lemon sucker, and it tells you, it's like, if it makes you feel physically ill, that's a good thing. That's why it's called trusting your gut. Like, life should make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And those are the decisions you should. And I always kind of went with that my whole life. And I was like, it makes sense. That is the trusting your gut. But the same now is true for this feeling of fraud, right? And the sensing of that it's not right. So then the question becomes, how do you determine the difference between this, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm feeling uneasy, it's a good thing, versus I'm feeling uncomfortable, this is a clear bad decision. So I think that's where people maybe are getting hung up and not able to determine the difference and, seize their dreams.
Yeah, it sometimes it is hard to know. And I also think it's a personal issue in terms of like how aligned we are with ourselves, because I know that like now I feel like my gut instincts and my intuition are far more honed than they were before.
Yeah.
Before I became more of what I consider to be a whole person.
Right.
I have...
And that's true. Getting rid of that drama.
Yeah.
And like the manifestation. And do you meditate?
I don't know. I don't meditate.
Okay, so
I pray, but I don't meditate. Like prayer is a sort of form of meditation. Yeah.
So I recently read this book, The Miracle Morning, and I really recommended it. It was very well written, and little things you can do, grading and meditation. And I hadn't meditated since, I used to practice martial arts. I don't know if you know this, but I was the youngest black belt in America at one point.
Oh, wow.
Female one. But this is a long time ago. And Subak Domu de Kwan, got my black belt at 15, and it was a big deal at the time. But I never really had done much meditation since then. And now I've been trying to do some meditation. And it is really interesting how you can, I don't know, kind of calm the mind, but for me, it's not that you don't think of nothing.
Yeah.
I think people are always like, you got to think of nothing. I can't think of nothing, but it's more like just focusing on, I've been doing this exercise now with this lotus, where I like see one of my boyfriend's, someone he looks up to or has done work with. She teaches philosophy at the school. She taught me this exercise where you like imagine yourself or your lotus, right, the chakra, and it lifts up in it. I breathe and open up leaves, and then you kind of travel places.
Wow.
And it's been really interesting, but I think that, I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not.
I do feel like sometimes I don't particularly meditate, but I can achieve a meditative state. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Sometimes we'll be traveling, we'll be on an airplane, and I will literally sit down, and Amir actually comments on this. I don't like talking to anyone on an airplane. I'm in my own cocoon. I'm in my own space. Sometimes literally 5, 6, 7, 8 hours can go by, and it feels literally like an instant because I'm just thinking about things in such a way where I'm so inside my mind that time, there's literally no sense of time. It just flies right by.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think
We
that's
could bottle that up.
I love that.
Pill form.
It's amazing.
I mean, this is what everyone wants.
But no, it's so, I guess I don't have a specific meditative practice, but I do feel like I have a sort of meditative state of mind at sometimes.
Yeah.
So
it's the diamond business, post-COVID, pre-COVID, has there been changes?
So yes, the diamond prices, like everything, every luxury good, just really everything during COVID, the prices spiked insanely, right? The price.
Why? Because they couldn't mine for more diamonds? Like what is the?
No, it was because there was demand. People were all pent up, and they just wanted to buy stuff, right? So all the luxury brands, diamonds, watches went insane. Rolex watches, Patek Philippe's, Audemars Piguet's, they were selling in some instances for 7 to 10 times their retail price.
Wow.
Because you couldn't get them at the store.
Interesting.
Diamonds were at an all-time high, and then they crashed. So the advent of the lab-created diamond, which is a diamond that is physically, optically, chemically, virtually identical to natural diamonds that are created in a lab, they look exactly the same. So you really can't tell the difference. They've become so popular over the last couple of years that it's basically it's a supply and demand issue because there's not enough natural diamonds being absorbed into the market, where so many are being cut and produced and mined, but they're actually not being purchased because now lab-created diamonds has a huge market share.
And they create these this carbon, right? And
yeah. So what they do is so because I have all the gemology degrees, I can tell you from technical.
Learn all about it.
So they call it carbon vapor deposition, CVD. Okay. So there's this chamber that has this plasma that's created by piping methane gas into a chamber, and I think argon. And then there's a seed crystal of either a natural diamond or a lab-created diamond. And it's put on sort of this, for lack of a better term, like a little pedestal. And then the plasma, it's literally like plasmified carbon that comes from the methane, basically, and it separates itself, and then it deposits itself on top of the diamond crystal, and then it, over the course of about 12 weeks, just continues to grow in layers.
Wow.
Okay? So it's a pretty cool process.
It's amazing.
But it's a huge market share of engagement rings, diamond stud earrings, things that in the past people wouldn't even think about. And even incredibly wealthy people are buying these as maybe they wouldn't do their engagement ring.
Is that Hearts on Fire diamond and things like that?
No. Hearts on Fire is a natural diamond brand.
Okay.
They might have a synthetic too, but I'm pretty sure it's mostly natural. But they have a certain cutting standard.
Because I remember the one, that's when I would,
Yeah.
How do you know that it's, do you just have to look under a microscope, or are they advertising them as synthetic?
No, it has to be disclosed legally. So if there's enough inclusions, a gemologist who studied it should be able to note by the inclusion types that it is laboratory, that it's a laboratory grown diamond. But let's say the diamond's very clean, there's very few inclusions, or, you know, maybe just like a little pinpoint or something very tiny, it would be very difficult. So you would have to put it in a special type of machinery, which it then monitors its diamond type. It has different reactions under like a shortwave ultraviolet light.
Color?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
because I know there's like all the like the black diamond or the
there's synthetic pink diamonds, synthetic blue diamonds, synthetic, you know, D color, E, F, G, H, you know, ranging all the spectrum of color.
You can get a rainbow.
Yeah, you could. So because of that, the diamond prices went down. Now, that being said, my business personally, since COVID, has exploded. You know, before COVID, it was a good business, but now it's really turning into an incredible business. You know, since COVID, probably, you know, revenue has tripled.
Wow.
You know, yearly. So it's great. But I think I'm at the stage in my career where I'm starting to reap the benefits of the early relationship building, and it's all word of mouth. And I work with, you know, incredibly high net worth individuals that are like on the Forbes list. I work with celebrities. I work with, you know, anybody. I range the gamut from, I can do a $2,000 piece and I can do a $2 million piece. And I treat every single transaction exactly the same way. Sometimes I put more effort into a very inexpensive piece than I have into an incredibly expensive piece.
And do you do both the synthetic and or are you a traditional?
I do. I try talking people out of it, but if that's what they want, I will sell it to them, and obviously at a far better price than they're going to see at a retail store. The markups on the synthetic diamonds are insane. I mean, it's crazy. There's some places they're adding 10 times profit margin, like 1,000%.
And where are they making these synthetic diamonds at all over the world?
They're made mostly in China and India, and they're mostly cut in India. But those are I would say the two biggest markets are China and India for production.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where do you see the market going in the next 5 years?
It's tough to say. So what I see is there's a divergence, and it's funny because I was doing some I do a lot of advisory work for important collections as well. This morning I was putting together some graphs, and what I noticed is that I feel the market has bottomed out in certain areas. Now, the smaller diamonds, let's say under 2 carats, I feel like the prices are suppressed and they're going to continue to be suppressed. But what I noticed in the last 6 months, there is a huge upswing in the over 3 carat range. The prices are on an upward trend right now. So, and in the higher quality combinations, like higher color and clarity, we're seeing that the prices are sustained or maybe even possibly going higher, whereas in the smaller and lower quality pieces, the prices are very low, and they might even continue to trend slightly lower. But I can't imagine that they can go lower than where they are. I mean, they are lower than they were 20 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy.
And then you'll wonder, is there like another stone or gem that's becoming more trendy than diamond? What's the reason? Or is it these NFTs and things that are happening in the metaverse?
I don't think the metaverse really affects it because, you know, the whole beauty of jewelry and gemstones is physical. You're seeing the physical beauty. Rubies are off the charts right now. I mean, rubies are, if it's an unheated ruby, and specifically from Burma, and even there's another origin called Mozambique that is gaining a lot of traction and value since the Burmese are so unavailable.
Right. With
sapphires, you have Kashmir and Burmese sapphires. These are stones that are so difficult to get, so rare. The difference between those stones and diamonds is there is more rarity to rubies and unheated sapphires of particular origins. So in some cases, and emeralds, Colombian emeralds as well, that have a low level of treatment or that are untreated and have that really gem quality color. And you don't really have to be such an aficionado to understand color. The way that I like to explain color in gemstones to people with the color gemstones is if you look at it and it just it just speaks to you. Or I look at it like I want to eat it. I know that sounds crazy, but like I look at a ruby and it's like a gorgeous strawberry that I just want to pick and eat.
Yeah.
Or like, it just, the stuff to me just looks edible,
Delicious.
you know? But you can, if you go into a lot of retail stores that are like, let's say middle market or low middle market, you see cloudy rubies.
It's not rich either. Like I think like for me, like a ruby or an emerald or a sapphire, I like it dark, and I want it to not be milky or
Exactly. You don't want it to look. You don't want it to look cloudy or milky. You want it to really have that crisp,
like you're looking
crystalline look. 100%. Exactly. Like you're looking into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And what is the large? I mean, and they can't make any fake rubies yet or anything.
No, they've been making synthetic rubies since I believe the late 1800s.
But really,
and if you want to correlate this lab-grown diamond craze to the lab-grown ruby and sapphire, because ruby and sapphire are the same gemstone, just one is red and one is blue. It's called corundum, the same family. They have the same, same crystal structure.
Yeah.
So there were companies like even Cartier and Van Cleef, they were using lab-created rubies and sapphires in the Art Deco period, because with natural stones, it's very difficult to calibrate the color so that it all looks even. But with lab-created rubies and sapphires, they were able to match the color really well and create those beautiful bracelets.
Yeah, and like the big,
as
if all those,
exactly.
It'd be like weird.
They used it more for the little stones.
Yeah.
But you found luxury, jewelry houses using lab-created gemstones such as ruby and sapphire. But then it died, and they were actually expensive to buy when they first came out, kind of like they were expensive to buy when they were first popularized, like maybe 5 to 7 years ago. Now the prices are going down tremendously. They're crashing in a lot of ways, and the same thing happened. So it's almost like I liken it to we're reliving sort of what happened in the early 1900s with the synthetic ruby and sapphire market.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, for investment purposes, are people, they're still buying jewelry because it makes them feel good? Are people buying it as kind of like my father always believed in gold, right? Buy gold for, in case the world ended, is Jewish, and it's a good decision making. Hoard as much gold as you can, and it's always going to have a value.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way about stones?
It's hard to say that stones are, or diamonds or whatever, are an investment. Now they are, if they're bought properly. If it's being purchased in a high retail environment where the retailer is making such a huge profit margin, then it's probably not a good investment. If it's branded, and let's say you're better off, quote unquote, overpaying if you're buying a brand. But if you're paying high retail and it's not branded, then it doesn't have that sort of extra
security,
that extra value, that like intangible but tangible value. Like you maybe can't see it, but because it's a Tiffany or Harry Winston piece, it might retain more of its value.
But I love when you tell me things like that, because I'm in marketing and this and we know it's true. I mean, because that's my dad. I mean, I'll never forget when generics first came out at the supermarket. And kind of, you didn't see that many when I was a child. At least we didn't. Now we have lines of generic, right? And he wanted aspirin, and I went to go get it, and I got the generic brand, and he's like, "What is this? This is not Bayer." I'm like, "That is aspirin. It's the exact same thing." Doesn't say, it's not the same, because it doesn't say Bayer on it. And that realization that, wow, yeah, it does matter.
Yeah.
And,
but there are some instances in the jewelry market where it doesn't matter. So, so I deal with a lot of estates and people that are trying to sell stuff as well, appraisals of estates and, advisory services. So in some cases, if you have, let's say, a ring or diamond stud earrings particularly, the market, I don't think, acknowledges so much additional value for the branding when it comes to pieces that don't have what I call an iconic aesthetic. So a pair of diamond stud earrings looks like any other pair of diamond stud earrings, okay? You can't tell the difference. So when you go to resell Tiffany or Cartier or Harry Winston diamond stud earrings, they're not in the secondary market, let's say at auction and an open market, which is where most, of this stuff is going to transact. It's not going to have so much more value than if they were the exact same quality stones. But yet the person had paid so much more for it at the beginning.
Time,
yeah,
right.
Maybe double or triple of what you would pay in a different setting.
Well, and now that there's not as many retail stores, I think a lot of that is the markup and the whole experience, the experiential part of this branding.
Yeah.
If I was going to buy this Cartier, or if I would go to some destination and I'd get champagne and I would have this packaging and all these things.
It's about the experience. So a lot of the sort of middle America retailers, I think from what I've been reading, more jewelry retailers are closing.
Yeah.
Because the internet has created so much transparency in the market that people know about how much a diamond should cost. They go to Blue Nile, they go to James Allen, they look online. Those are probably my biggest, when I'm selling an engagement ring to a regular guy that's getting engaged that wants to spend $20,000, $30,000, he's probably looking online and seeing where my pricing is comparing to the online. Jewelry stores are adding so much more of a retail margin that it's very hard for them to sell engagement rings. So they're selling more like finished jewelry pieces. What a jewelry store can provide is a variety. So someone can go in and look and see what they might want to buy, whereas I don't have, let's say, an inventory of tons of pieces. So it's really like someone would have to know what they wanted, and then I could make it for them.
I was going to ask that. So you're selling the stone, and then you help them design the setting?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then who makes do you have some preferred part?
Yeah. I have different levels of
amazing
price point. Yeah, I have this one guy who's incredible, and he makes it literally by hand. Like he manipulates the platinum by hand with lasers and torches, and it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to make. Then I have another guy who makes a CAD, who makes a model, a wax model, which then gets cast.
Right.
But it doesn't have hand fabrication. So it depends on the price point. It depends on, the value of the stones I'm working with, if it makes sense or not to, different levels of artisans to work with. But it's all made in New York. None of it's made overseas, except in some rare instances. But all of the major production that I do on a day-to-day basis is all made in places in New York, in ateliers in New York. But I was going to say something else before, and I got a little bit off topic about... it was about branding. Oh, about retail stores.
Yeah.
So a lot of them closing, but where I noticed where I think the market is still thriving is experiential. Resort areas, cruise ships, resort destinations. People don't mind if necessarily maybe they're paying a little bit more than they would normally, but those jewelry pieces will carry a memory for them, and they'll
kill good.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and they want to be there in Hawaii. They want to memorialize this experience.
Absolutely,
and that's a way to do that. Yeah. Just like when you go buy art.
By the way, I also someone who has absolute, unrestricted access to the wholesale markets of anything jewelry related. I will sometimes buy something in a retail store if I'm in a vacation spot and it reminds me of my trip. Now, of course, I negotiate the hell out of it because, I try, to not pay full retail, and I explain to them, what I do. And
do you know who I am?
Well, we don't do that. But yeah, I say, listen, I'm here on a trip. I'm, so.
You're not your average bear.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Do you think about, what's going on with, when I go to Macy's, we talked about Macy's before, or even Nordstrom, it just seems like row after row of emptiness,
Yeah.
And then who buys some of these clothes? When you look on the actual shelf, and there was just so many layers of bad decision making. And that's what really gets me. It's like, okay, someone had to first make this pattern, which is hideous or whatever it is. Then someone else was like, you know what, that's the pattern. I'm going to have it cut and sewn into these things that no one wants to wear.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so it's like, how many layers of approval happened before this got into the store and who then is going to buy it. I mean, this is just, and then the future of with internet and being able to return things and not even have to make them. I mean, I'm doing this print on demand stuff that I was going to show you, right?
Fantastic.
Where I don't, and here for like a small retailer, instead of having to commit to buying the polo shirts or buying the swag, no, you get a couple samples and, it's made when it's paid for.
Yeah.
And
as you need it.
Yeah. But then if that's the way things are going, what happens to the experience of shopping?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's the same in the jewelry stores too. I mean, that sometimes I see stuff and I'm just like, who made this? Like, this is so ugly, like the combination of colors, but you'd be shocked. Ugly sells. Like I'm shocked sometimes that there are pieces that are actually popular and sell. But again, it's all a matter of individual taste. So, I mean, who are we to, so we don't have the same context as other people.
That's right. Yeah. Right. And that's
even when I'm designing something, coming from the Tiffany background, I go with timeless. I go with classic, beautiful. I'm obsessive. You can ask the people that work with me on CADs, they want to kill me half the time. But I'm like, taper this, make this 1.6 millimeters, then, and I'm so specific. I'm not like, oh, just let's make a drawing. Like there's so much detail that goes into it. And sometimes I get a client that just literally wants something that I deem ugly, but I can try and guide them a little bit, but who am I? I mean, who am I to judge their taste? I mean, I will provide for them what will make them happy because they have to wear it every day.
Yeah, and I guess that's the difference, so for, because it does make them happy, right? And the flip side of that design, I see a lot, and not as much as I used to because I've changed from the clients that I'll work with, but there's always those ones that say, oh, just give them what they want. And, okay, well, if you're going to buy it and take it home and wear it, fine. But if you're going to now put this twist into this TV commercial or your website, right? Well, you're not necessarily our target audience.
Right.
Or you're not the one, and then these bad decisions, your poor design choices are going to have ramifications that I won't be responsible for.
Yeah. I'm not. So when I'm dealing in that situation, obviously there's very different, I would say, types of circumstances. But I won't just be like, yes, I'll make whatever you want. It's kind of like I try to take what they send to me as sort of a reference aesthetic, and then I, as best as possible, try to tailor it a little bit and make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And often they will like, the sort of little subtle changes that I make. Yeah.
That's why they come to you, right?
I think.
So you guys are going so tell me, what is the most, you're going to Colombia soon, and what is Colombia known for gem-wise?
Emeralds.
Emeralds.
Yeah, very famous. They produce the best emeralds in the world.
Wow.
Colombian emeralds of high quality and gem quality, clarity and color, and have low treatment levels or no treatment. I mean, can be far more expensive than diamonds.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when you go on this trip, I know you're going to be getting your baby, but are you also going to be having some time for some emerald shopping?
Well, believe it or not, the best emeralds are not sold in Colombia. So the best emeralds are actually exported and sold in New York or Geneva. So what they actually have in Colombia is very tourist oriented. It's like very commercial grade and sold in very touristy stores. So there's nothing really exciting.
No.
I've sold like unbelievable Colombian emeralds out of New York from, one of the biggest Colombian emerald dealers in the world is located there. So
wow,
those are amazing. Those look like the Romancing the Stone. Do you remember that movie? Yeah, that might be slightly. So one of my early childhood memories of how I think I realized I had such a passion for gems, two memories. Field trip at the Hall of Gems at the Museum of Natural History in New York, mesmerized by all the crystals and the geodes. And it was just, I remember this, I was a little kid and it really impacted me.
Wow.
And then when I watched the movie Romancing the Stone, which was about this sort of couple, these two people that were thrown into this circumstance trying to find this incredibly valuable emerald called the El Diablo.
Ooh.
In Colombia. And at the end, they reveal this, near the end, when they find the emerald, there's like a light shining on it. And of course, it's like a piece of glass, but I was like 10 and I saw this emerald in the movie and it just looked like magic. Like it just looked magical.
Yeah.
There is a magic to these gemstones. There's something incredible about it. They were, created in the earth, by God, by nature, whatever, you want to believe. And it took them millions of years to form under incredible conditions. And just to think about you wearing a piece of nature, just a piece of the earth, I find that connection to be so fascinating and incredible.
I think it's true, and it can be transformative.
Yeah.
Same thing as when you just had these shoots and had my girlfriend came to professional makeup artist, and the difference we talked about how a lot of people have professional photography done, or they'll go to an event and not think about having a professional do it. Like, oh, I can do my own makeup, but it's different.
Yeah.
When the way you feel, it transforms all your situations. And I think that's part of the power of having this piece of jewelry. So you put it on and you feel specialer.
Well, it does. I feel like jewelry is empowering.
Yeah.
And especially, women, the woman self-purchaser is one of the biggest growing demographics in the jewelry business. Everything in the world, it was all geared towards men, and there was like misogyny in it, like men buying for women, and the women were really overlooked. But now all of the marketing is really targeting like the women buying for themselves.
Love that.
Because the professional woman who, works hard.
My money.
My money. I want to do my thing with it. I don't need a man to buy this for me, And so the woman self-purchaser is an incredible demographic that's growing in the jewelry market. Now, a lot of my stuff is engagement, so it is more the man buying. But I've had situations where women have come in, and a lot of the other diamond people in the diamond district, they don't take that seriously when a woman comes in, because they're like, what, she's going to buy her own engagement ring? But they often pass. Sometimes you don't make the sale, but they will often pass your information to their boyfriend. And I've made many sales. I actually had
in the company could be women buying for women. I mean, there's
that also, and I've had that
buying for men. I mean, everyone's buying for everyone.
That's true. That's right. But this jewelry empowers you.
Yeah.
For men, let's say, wearing the right watch, wearing the Patek Philippe, the Rolex, it gives them a sense of empowerment.
Yeah,
they're in a meeting and they're with all big execs, and everybody's got a nice watch, and not to say that everybody needs that. That might not feed a need in certain people, but I think in a lot of people, it gives them an incredible sense of accomplishment, of confidence, and it allows them to present themselves in such a way that I think might be the best version of themselves. Same thing with women with diamonds, less with watches, let's say. So for men, it's more the watch. For women, they wear big stud earrings. They're wearing, their big ring or a necklace that they bought, and they bought it for themselves. And it feels like an accomplishment that they bought it with their own money, and they can wear on their body and show their accomplishment. And
it's like tribal.
Yeah, it is absolutely tribal.
Yeah.
I've done presentations about the origins of jewelry, and we're talking, this goes back 100,000 years.
Yeah.
When people were wearing feathers.
Right.
As a
or furs.
Yeah.
Or
stones
or teeth or all those.
Yeah. Yeah. But there is a need, I think, that's inherent in the human psyche.
Yeah.
About there's a need to not necessarily, we're not talking about being braggadocious or showy or ostentatious. It's to represent yourself in such a way to distinguish yourself.
Yeah.
Or it's almost kind of could also be like a uniform. It tells you what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
Like, are you a stack multiple eternity bands person? Are you a very clean and simple, dainty solitaire person? I know that when I do advisory and I work with very high net worth families on estate appraisals, and I often see a certain archetype that emerges. Like, I can see that the same type of woman has the same type of jewelry as another similar type of woman based on their, religion or ethnicity, their socioeconomic strata. It's,
I got an idea for you.
Sure.
So we're all talking about AI now, right? And I think that just that what you're talking about, there is this underlying need, right, for us, especially I think as we become more global and more alone. In fact, we feel like we should be closer, but what we've seen is that we are less trusting. We are, you don't let your kid walk down a block by themselves anymore.
Right.
So we're closer, but we're farther away. And it makes it even more important to be able to quickly determine who someone is. And this is one of the ways we do that.
Yeah.
But if we have enough data, right, using AI or creating an AI could be the perfect way to find the right jewelry for you.
That's true too. I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I like that.
We'll talk about it more later. Stay tuned. We're diamond matching AI coming soon.
I love that.
Well, this has been really fascinating. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I'm just I'm really happy for you and all of your success. Your book, which looks amazing. I'm excited to read it. Thank you for the copy.
My pleasure.
Visually, it just looks incredible. It's like so cool. It looks like kind of like a sci-fi movie.
Some Matrix stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
And all of your success in business and being published under the Forbes umbrella. So congratulations to you. It's really exciting.
Thank you. It's been such a wonderful journey. And my last little bit here is, not many people know this, but Joey was actually the reason that I got my very first job in Hawaii and stayed there. Because at the time, I had graduated early from college at Bentley and was going to go back to Boston. I never thought that I would end up in Hawaii. People have seen that Emily in Paris. Well, my story was Anna in London, and I was going to go, and I could see myself prancing around in pubs and posh, and that was going to be my plan after college. But I had graduated early and came out to Hawaii because my parents were snowbirding. And bored, just super bored. And Joey so bored. And
I also did have an ulterior motive because you were so fun and we used to hang out and we used to make some trouble together. And I was like, I'm like, I kind of want her to stay. So.
Yeah. And so Joey's like, I had to get overcommitted to this event it was called Chic Fashion Forward, and it was for the Symphony fashion show. And I did some modeling and thought it'd be great, not realizing when I accepted that it was.
Well, you did such an incredible job. I mean, everybody was raving about the work you did.
Crazy, but Paul Brown had been the sponsor, hair and makeup sponsor, and it was at the Halekulani. And
then he hired you full time right after that.
He did. I got offered 3 jobs afterward. It was
amazing.
The Symphony offered me a job, that golf course in Salt Lake, which I can never remember the name of, Honolulu Country Club.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Paul, of course. So it was the sexiest job. So I stayed and flash forward.
He passed away recently, right?
He did. He passed away last year. He had a brain tumor.
Wow.
Yeah. And now, talk about it's a whole story for another day, but he, that's about kind of the innovation in the wrong way, where you just can't see because writing on the wall of trends and whatnot. But he was a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, and now they're going to tear down the Ward area. So they did down by the Ward warehouse.
Yeah,
and now they're going to be. They kept saying that they're going to do it, but they never did. And now I hear that they are planning to.
Oh wow,
where his original salon was. But I mean it needs to go down. Not in that way, but like it is just so old,
Yeah,
and
it's dated.
It's dated.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it. Time to level it to the ground. But anyways, well, for those who want to learn more about Joey, do you have a website now?
Yeah, it's very easy. Joseph with an F, JOSEFC.com, josephc.com.
josephc.com.
And has information about, my background. I have the graduate gemology degree in New York. I have the FGA degree of London, so I'm a British trained gemologist as well, and I also have the diamond degree from there, and I'm the only certified master jewelry appraiser in all of New York. Okay.
Very impressive.
A lot of it was during COVID. I said, I'm going to use this unprecedented time. I said, I'm going to use this I'm also going to, drink a little too much red wine and binge Netflix shows. But I'm also going to like learn everything and do everything because we are never getting this time ever again. And it was by far the best thing that I did was taking on all these educational opportunities. Because
it's so interesting you should say that. I started selling solar for one of my local SunPower dealers, and it was a transformative experience for me.
A lot of people during COVID. My cousin, this would be a good one for you.
Oh yeah.
She became a cookie mogul.
A what?
A cookie mogul.
A cookie mogul.
Yeah, she had no training in cookies. She's in Florida.
Like cookies. Eat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you your Instagram.
Okay.
She started baking cookies. She has no background in baking or cooking or F&B. She started making these cookies that went viral, and she now
What's in the cookie?
They put a whole bunch of shit. Like literally, she puts like Snickers bars and like just all these weird combinations of stuff and like just things you would never even imagine in cookies.
Wow.
And they were able to like buy a building that where they now have like a little sort of cafe on one side, but then that's also their commercial baking facility. And they do all these events, and they specialize in their niche, I think, is munchies a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. There's a little bit of the targeted marketing.
Everything
is a little munchies, but also like athletes, like triathletes, people who are like intense runners and stuff like that. They're thin, they're burning so many calories, so they indulge,
eat whatever they want.
And so they found a niche with that, but they're really killing it.
Wow,
it's amazing.
That sounds like a very interesting story.
Yeah. But thank you so much for having me on. This was really great, and it's really just exciting to sit here with you and come full circle after all these years.
Sure is. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining me this week on the Covert Code. Stay tuned next week as I sit down with another industry expert to talk about a business that can help you succeed on and offline. See you in the pixels. Aloha.